The school bad boy hired me, the valedictorian, to be his girlfriend just to beat the school golden boy. I was in it for the massive paycheck. He was in it for my ability to crush his rival. The whole school witnessed the most bizarre pairing. The volatile, rebellious school bad boy showed up at my classroom door, right on time for our daily PDA check-in. He picked fights, I stopped him. He got mad, I calmed him down. He threw a tantrum, I patted his head. Everyone was horrified. A leash on a mad dog. Isn't this just the wicked witch and her curly poodle? The school bad boy, Vincent, cornered me in an alley. He leaned against the brick wall, a stick jutting out of his mouth. He looked every bit the untamed rebel. I assumed he was going to hit me. Instead, he offered to hire me to be his girlfriend. Why me? I clutched my backpack straps and tucked my chin into my only winter coat. You're pretty. He said it like an absolute fact. He pulled the stick from his mouth. A lollipop. You get good grades. You're the valedictorian. You can crush Carter, and you look good doing it. Be my girlfriend and I'll pay you. Crushing Carter. That was the real motive. How much? He named a number I couldn't refuse. Deal. Vincent shamelessly paraded around as my official boyfriend. He announced it to the world immediately. He would have told the stray dogs outside if he could. He wanted every living, breathing thing to know I belonged to him. I accepted the title without blushing or flinching. I had no choice. The paycheck was too good. I was in the AP honors class. So was Carter, the valedictorian and the salutatorian. We naturally sat next to each other in class. Except, I glanced at the items covering our two desks. One side was neat but pathetic. The other was perfectly organized and screamed money. That was the difference between me and Carter. He came from a rich family. I had no parents. Vincent swaggered past our classroom and poked his head in. His lackeys waved excitedly from behind him. Hey, the boss's girl. I paused. According to the contract, I needed to respond. I gave his lackeys a polite nod and a smile. I needed to get out of my seat. That meant getting past Carter. He was busy filling out a worksheet. Excuse me. Vincent made it clear this was all about showing up Carter. So I added a helpful little detail. My boyfriend is here for me. Carter's pen stopped. He silently moved out of the way. Vincent handed me a carton of milk, playing the perfect doting boyfriend. Then he dropped his voice to a whisper. Can you keep your rank on this next exam? I heard Carter's parents got him a private Ivy League tutor. Top-tier stuff. If you're losing confidence, I can hire one for you too. Grades don't just jump from a private Ivy League tutor. I took the milk from his hand. You can't tutor raw talent. Vincent gave me a thumbs up. Badass. We didn't talk much after that. But to sell the romance, we stood together outside the door for a solid 5 minutes. Plenty of people saw us. It cemented Vincent's grand announcement in everyone's minds. The anonymous school message board blew up. Holy shit. Eleanor and Vincent? Do those two even talk? I see Vincent lingering outside Eleanor's door every 2 periods. He's hot, but that's straight up creepy. They're definitely dating. 100% true. Vincent's crew said Eleanor got mugged, Vincent played hero, and it was love at first sight. I clicked on that last comment and read it carefully. I looked up at Vincent, baffled. Mugged. Played hero. It adds some flavor to our meet cute. Makes the story a little more romantic. What exactly is a mugger going to steal from me? My backpack full of practice exams or my frayed winter coat? We'll patch the plot holes next time. He was far too confident in his own imagination. Vincent and Carter. Natural-born enemies. Both were gorgeous. Both came from money. During high school, people naturally favored the guy with the better temper and the top grades. Because Carter was the salutatorian, the title of the school golden boy fell right into his lap. As for Vincent, his temper was lethal. No one dared to cross him. He texted me. You absolutely cannot lose to Carter. I replied. Even if I beat him, no one will think you beat him. You're my girlfriend. You being the valedictorian makes me look good. How about 15 grand if you keep first place this time? I'll raise the stakes next round. I stared at the 15 grand on my screen for a long time. Then I picked up my pen and started tearing through practice problems. A girl knocked on the window next to me. Excuse me, could you get Carter for me? I didn't even lift my head. I just leaned forward a bit, so she could see Carter sitting beside me. Carter stepped outside. She was supposedly his girlfriend. When he came back, he had a carton of milk and a bag of cookies. The cookies smelled freshly baked. Maybe this was the real reason Vincent hired me. Because Carter had a girlfriend. A bizarre, toxic rivalry. The next second, my phone vibrated violently. People are saying his girl brought him food? Where is mine? I want some too. You can't let me lose to him. Gossip moved fast in this school. I texted back unfazed. I'm broke. The next day, the space under my desk was stuffed with snacks. From now on, I'll bring you snacks every day. You just have to pretend you bought them for me. Of course, so I don't distract you from crushing Carter, I can come pick them up myself. So I found Vincent practically guarding my window every single day. He leaned casually against the frame. I placed the snacks in his hands. Ugh, why are you so good to me? It's not like I'm going to starve. Look at you, making me walk all the way up here to get this. He might as well have grabbed a megaphone and shouted it directly into Carter's ear. I played right along. I just worry about you. I didn't know how Carter felt about it, but Vincent was clearly thrilled. When I finally sat back down, Carter spoke up. You don't need to do this. I turned and looked at him. The milk and cookies from this morning were already in the trash can. The guy was entirely two-faced. Wasting food was a sin. I like him, I said. I love him. I put on the performance of a naive, lovesick teenage girl. I want to fight the whole world for him. You have a girlfriend, don't you? Don't you understand how this feels? I thought you would get it. Carter frowned. But I'm not going to make things convenient for your little romance. Stop going out to see him all the time. It's distracting me. I instantly looked offended. Do you know how many times I made things convenient for you, Carter? The love letters, the gifts, passing messages. Did you just forget all that? But the second it's my turn, it's a problem? My God, you have no conscience. I'm never forgiving you for this. Carter tightened his jaw. I shot him one last look. I didn't say another word. My acting was on point today. I earned every single penny of that paycheck. Getting mixed up with Vincent would bring me a lot of trouble. It did not matter. Trouble meant nothing in the face of cold, hard cash. The homeroom teacher dragged me into his office. The teachers at this school always looked at people with this sickening, judgmental glare. Everyone in the office pretended to focus on their own work. In reality, every single ear was strained in my direction. Sir, you don't need to try and tear us apart. I beat him to the punch. The homeroom teacher stared. Love is an unsolvable equation, I declared. His face went dark. The most important thing for a student right now is studying. I am the valedictorian. Do you have any idea what the consequences of your actions are? I am the valedictorian. Bring your parents in here. I am the valedictorian. Oh, he asked about my parents. I smiled. Sir, if you want to find my parents, you will have to use a Ouija board to summon them up. This was the exact same man who once told me that a wild child with no parents was impossible to discipline. Clearly, he had forgotten. How many people in this school are dating right now? You always pretend you don't see it. You don't dare touch them. You only target me. I kept my voice perfectly level. Sir, aside from this dating issue, you have chewed me out for countless other things. Just for the sake of fairness, why don't you call Vincent's parents in here instead? He kicked me out of the office. I looked down, smoothed out my collar, and walked away completely unbothered. I could tolerate his disdain and his misunderstandings. But nobody was going to sever my bond with my money. The rumors only burned hotter after my bold declarations. No one dared to gossip in front of Vincent. They were terrified of him. But as the weird outcast student, the ugly words easily made their way to my ears. I demanded pain and suffering compensation from Vincent for that exact reason. He didn't hesitate. He handed over the cash, tracked down the source of the rumors, and pinned the guy to the ground. Vincent looked down at him, a dark smile curving his lips. You've got a lot of nerve. Man, I was just talking. I swear I didn't mean anything by it. That's fine. I'm just throwing punches. I don't mean anything by it either. Vincent smiled, but the amusement never reached his eyes. He had been hanging around me so much lately that people forgot who he really was. A ruthless, untouchable tyrant. I waited until he finished dealing with the guy. Then I stepped quietly out of the shadows. Vincent, let's go. Vincent let out a cold laugh and kicked the guy on the ground one last time. Do it again and you're dead. Then he slung his jacket over his shoulder and followed me. The crowd watched our retreating backs in absolute horror. He left with a single word? He answered the second she spoke? Vincent actually listened to Eleanor. Eleanor looked so quiet. Nobody realized she had a sick, twisted fetish for keeping vicious dogs. Actually, our conversation went like this. Vincent poked my thin coat in disgust. This is hideous. What even is this? It is not keeping you warm or cool. Let me buy you a few jackets. Pass. I shoved my hands in my pockets. Unbothered. 2 days in your clothes and everyone will say I am your sugar baby. The pot calling the kettle black. With his atrocious taste, I would be drowning in tacky, logo-plastered designer gear by Tuesday. Vincent frowned. That is just the delusions of broke people getting jealous. Having a deep conversation with Vincent was impossible. He refused to read between the lines. He only heard exactly what he wanted to hear. Honestly, you do not need to care what people say today. It does not matter. Are you just waiting to hit me up for more pain and suffering compensation next time? He caught me. I pivoted immediately. But of course, when it comes to personal reputation, we have to take a stand. Vincent scoffed. You are officially my girl now. Anyone talking trash about you is slapping me in the face. They can come for you. But if they touch me, I will end them. He finished his speech and looked at me, waiting for praise. Moved. I did not dare move. After all, the guy was terrifying when he cornered people in alleys. I coughed to clear my throat. We said our goodbyes. With the massive cash buff fueling me, the usual 5-point gap between Carter and me stretched to over a dozen points. Vincent was happier than I was on exam results day. He leaned against my window, flipping my transcript back and forth. Hey Carter, how does someone even score this high? How did this happen? How is there still so much room for improvement? Ha, I don't know man, my girlfriend is just that good. Some people can't even get it with a private Ivy League tutor. Not my girl. A total genius. Right, Carter? Carter kept a cold face. His lips pressed into a thin line. He did not say a word. He really did work hard. But no matter how hard he worked, he faded into the background under my halo. I slumped over my desk. My eyes narrowed. My head spun. I was sick. That thin coat let all the wind in when I went out to see Vincent. Prologue. The school bad boy hired me, the valedictorian, to be his girlfriend just to beat the school golden boy. I was in it for the massive paycheck. He was in it for my ability to crush his rival. The whole school witnessed the most bizarre pairing. The volatile, rebellious school bad boy showed up at my classroom door, right on time for our daily PDA check-in. He picked fights, I stopped him. He got mad, I calmed him down. He threw a tantrum, I patted his head. Everyone was horrified. A leash on a mad dog. Isn't this just the Wicked Witch and her curly poodle? When I finally woke up, the harsh, sterile smell of rubbing alcohol and industrial floor cleaner told me two things. I was in the school infirmary, and I wasn't dead, which meant I still had to figure out how to pay my electricity bill this month. I groaned, shifting on the paper-lined mattress. Don't move, a rough, familiar voice growled from the corner. I turned my head slowly. Vincent was sitting in a metal folding chair that looked absurdly small under his towering frame. His school uniform jacket was torn at the shoulder, his hair was a chaotic mess, and there was a purplish bruise blooming right along his left jawline. His right hand was wrapped in a thick, sloppy layer of white gauze. What happened to you? I rasped, my throat feeling as though someone had dragged sandpaper down it. Did you try to fight a snowplow? I fought a snake, Vincent spat. He leaned forward, shoving a plastic bottle of warm water with a bendy straw directly into my face. Drink. I took a few slow sips. The warm water soothed my raw throat. My brain slowly pieced together the chaotic fragments of memory before I lost consciousness. The cold hand on my forehead, the roar, the sound of desks crashing. You fought Carter, I concluded. He put his hands on you, Vincent snapped, his dark eyes flashing with genuine, unbridled fury. I walked in and saw him touching your face. I told him to back the fuck off, and the bastard had the nerve to tell me I was neglecting my duties as a boyfriend. As if he gets a say in how I treat my girl. He was checking my fever, I pointed out mildly. He was touching my property. Vincent barked, then immediately winced, clearing his throat awkwardly and looking away. I mean my asset. My investment. You're my valedictorian. If he breaks your brain, my 15 grand goes down the drain. I stared at him. You got suspended, didn't you? 3 days, he said carelessly, waving his uninjured hand. Worth it. I landed. A solid right hook on his pristine, salutatorian nose. Blood everywhere. His precious little fan club was weeping in the hallway. I let out a long, heavy sigh, sinking deeper into the flat pillow. Vincent, you're an idiot. Hey, I just defended your honor. You defended your ego. I corrected him. And now I have to sit next to an angry, bleeding salutatorian in AP Calculus tomorrow without my human shield. Vincent went quiet. He glared at the linoleum floor, his jaw working tightly. For a second he looked almost guilty. No, that was impossible. Vincent didn't do guilt. He did property damage and intimidation. The nurse said you collapsed from exhaustion and acute hypothermia, he muttered, his voice dropping an octave. Your body temperature was dangerously low because of that stupid, paper-thin rag you call a coat. It's vintage, I said flatly. And by vintage, I mean I bought it at a thrift store 3 years ago for $8. Vincent didn't laugh. He reached into his leather coat pocket, pulled out a thick band-wrapped stack of $100 bills, and slammed it onto the small metal tray table beside my bed. 50 grand, he said. I blinked, my deadpan mask cracking for half a second. What? 50 grand? Right now? Cash. I narrowed my eyes. Does the condition involve felony charges? No, he growled. The condition is that you take this money, go to the mall, after school, and buy a coat that doesn't look like it was chewed up by stray alley cats. A real coat. Heavy. Warm. Tacky as hell if you want, I don't care. Just stop freezing to death on my watch. I looked at the stack of bills, then at his bruised jaw, then into his dark, chaotic eyes. There was an intensity there that had nothing to do with Carter, grades, or high school rivalries. It was raw, unfiltered, and entirely too heavy for a fake contract signed in a back alley. Vincent, I said softly. This isn't in the agreement. I'm updating the terms, he snapped, standing up so fast his chair screeched violently against the floor. Consider it an emergency maintenance fee for my top asset. If you die of pneumonia, who's going to crush Carter for me? Before I could answer, the privacy curtain around my bed was yanked open with a loud clatter. Carter stood there. His pristine white uniform shirt was rumpled, his tie missing, and a thick white bandage was taped across the bridge of his nose. He looked remarkably ungolden, his dark eyes fixed entirely on Vincent. Visiting hours are over, Vincent, Carter said, his voice cold and clipped. The principal is waiting in his office for your father's lawyers. Vincent sneered, stepping closer to Carter until they were practically chest to chest. Tell my father's lawyers to buy a spine. And keep your hands off my girl, Carter. Next time, I won't stop at your nose. She isn't a trophy for you to win, Carter replied quietly, his eyes flickering toward me for a fraction of a second. She chose me, Vincent bragged, slinging his unbuttoned jacket over his shoulder. Didn't you hear her? She loves me. She wants to fight the whole world. For me. He shot me a smirk, completely unabashed about throwing my fake lovesick speech back in my face before shoving past Carter and disappearing down the hallway. The infirmary fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. Carter stood by the curtain for a long moment before walking over to the side of my bed. He picked up the stack of $50,000 Vincent had left on the tray table, looking at it with a mixture of disgust and pity. He's using you, Eleanor, Carter said softly. He's throwing his family's dirty money at you because he knows you need it. Do you really want to be dragged into his gutter? I reached out and snatched the money from his hand, tucking it securely under my thin blanket. The gutter pays very well, Carter, I said, my voice deadpan. And unlike you, Vincent doesn't pretend he's doing me a favor while looking down his nose at me. Carter's jaw tightened behind his bandage. I never looked down on you. You threw away fresh cookies today because they touched my side of the desk, I pointed out, staring at the ceiling. You're a hypocrite. Now go away. My head hurts, and I have a $50,000 shopping spree to plan. The next morning, I walked through the front gates of the high school wearing a heavy, ankle-length, down feather puffer jacket in deep emerald green. It was so thick I looked like a very fashionable sleeping bag, but it was warm. Warmer than anything I had ever worn in my entire life. I had spent $2,000 on the coat and put the remaining $48,000 straight into my high-yield savings account. As expected, the school message board was already on fire. Spotted. Eleanor wearing a jacket that costs more than my parents' car. Did Vincent officially turn her into a trophy wife? Look at her. She used to wear rags, now she's decked out in designer gear. She totally sold her soul to the bad boy. Honestly, respect. Get that bag, valedictorian. I walked into my AP honors classroom. Vincent was suspended for 3 days, so his usual spot leaning against my window was empty. The room felt strangely quiet without his obnoxious presence and his entourage of waving lackeys. I sat down at my desk. Carter was already there. His nose was heavily bandaged, making him look less like an untouchable golden boy and more like a defeated boxer. He didn't say a single word to me. He kept his eyes glued to his textbook, his posture rigid. Around second period, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Vincent, pictures. Now. I rolled my eyes, slid my phone under my desk, and snapped a quick selfie of me, bundled up in the massive green coat, looking unimpressed. Eleanor, happy. The reply was instant. Vincent, you look like a caterpillar. Vincent, a very expensive caterpillar. Vincent, good. Don't take it off. If I find out you took it off, I'm firing my security guards and hiring them to follow you around with a heater. I couldn't help the tiny, microscopic twitch of my lips. Eleanor, aren't you supposed to be suspended? Vincent, I'm currently sitting in my dad's study listening to him yell about family reputation. It's boring. I'd rather be standing outside your window. Eleanor, Carter looks terrible. You broke his nose. Vincent, good. Tell him I'm coming for his mouth next if he speaks to you. I locked my phone and slipped it away. During lunch, I sat alone on the bleachers outside enjoying the crisp winter air without shivering for the first time in years. The heavy coat kept the biting wind entirely at bay. You look ridiculous. I opened my eyes. Carter was standing at the bottom of the bleachers holding a brown paper bag. He walked up the wooden stairs and sat 2 steps below me. It's warm, I said flatly. It's his money, Carter said, staring out at the empty football field. You're letting him buy you, Eleanor. You're the smartest person in this school. You have a full ride to any Ivy League university you want. Why are you degrading yourself by playing his fake girlfriend? I took a slow breath, zipping my green coat up to my chin. You think it's degrading because you've never had to worry about where your next meal comes from, Carter, I said, my voice dangerously calm. You think grades and dignity pay the rent. But dignity doesn't buy heating oil in December. Dignity doesn't pay for my electricity bills or my college application fees. Carter turned to look at me, his eyes filled with a complicated, painful emotion. If you needed money, you could have asked me. My family has foundations. I don't want your charity, I snapped, dropping my deadpan mask for a fraction of a second. Vincent doesn't offer me charity. He offers me a contract. I work for him. I perform a service. I keep my rank. I crush you on exams. I give him a reputation. And he pays me a wage. It's a business transaction. It's honest. Carter looked stunned. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Vincent treats me like a professional, I continued, settling back into my quiet tone. You treat me like a tragic charity case you want to fix so you can feel good about yourself. That's the difference between you two. I stood up, pulling my heavy backpack over my shoulders. Now, if you'll excuse me, salutatorian, I have to go study. I have a $15,000 bonus riding on the next mock exam, and I'm not going to let you take it from me. 3 days later, Vincent's suspension ended. His return to school was treated like a royal procession. His lackeys practically rolled out a red carpet in the main hallway. He walked through the doors wearing his uniform with characteristic carelessness, top buttons undone, tie loose, his hair slightly damp from the morning rain. The bruise on his jaw had faded to a light yellowish green, making him look even more dangerously handsome. The moment he saw me standing near my locker, wearing the giant green coat, his eyes lit up. He strutted over, ignoring the dozens of students staring at us, and leaned his arm against the locker right next to my head, effectively trapping me in his shadow. Missed me? He asked, a cocky grin curling his lips. My ears stopped ringing for 3 days, I replied, adjusting my backpack. It was peaceful. Liar, he murmured, leaning down slightly until his face was inches from mine. He reached out and tugged playfully on the high collar of my coat. You wore the jacket. I knew you liked my taste. I like staying warm. Your taste is still atrocious. Vincent let out a loud, booming laugh that made a group of passing freshmen jump. He casually reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a gold embossed black envelope, sliding it into my front coat pocket. What's this? I asked, frowning. Your next assignment, he said. The annual winter charity gala is this Saturday. My family is hosting it. Carter's family is co-hosting. I stared at him. A gala? I don't do galas. I do exams. You do whatever I pay you to do, girlfriend, Vincent smirked, tapping his finger against my nose. And for this, I'm paying you 20 grand. Plus I bought you a dress. Vincent. No arguments, he cut me off, his voice turning firm, though his eyes carried an unmistakable spark of excitement. Carter's parents are presenting him to the city's high society as their pristine little heir. I need my girl there to outshine everyone in the room. I need you to walk in there, look like $1 million bucks, and make Carter realize that no matter how much money his family has, he'll always be second place. I looked at the black envelope in my pocket. $20,000. That, combined with my savings, was enough to pay for my entire first year of college, housing and meal plans. Does the dress have long sleeves? I asked pragmatically. It's winter. Vincent grinned, a surprisingly soft, genuine expression that caught me off guard. It's perfect. I picked it out myself. Then I'll be drowning in sequins and leopard print, I sighed. Hey, my taste is classier than you think. Saturday evening arrived faster than I wanted. At precisely 7 p.m., a sleek, black luxury sedan pulled up to the curb outside my rundown apartment building. The driver stepped out, opened the rear door, and handed me a massive, velvet-lined box from a high-end boutique in the city's fashion district. Inside was the dress. When I lifted it out of the tissue paper, my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't tacky. It wasn't covered in cheap logos or blinding sequins. It was an exquisite, deep navy blue velvet gown with long, fitted sleeves and elegant square neckline, and a subtle slit along the left leg. It looked like a midnight sky, simple, regal, and breathtakingly expensive. Tucked inside the box was a pair of matching silver heels and a small velvet pouch containing a pair of diamond stud earrings. There was a handwritten note inside, written in Vincent's messy, aggressive scrawl. Don't embarrass me, valedictorian. See you at 8. I put on the dress. I put on the shoes. I tied my dark hair up into a neat, elegant twist, letting a few strands frame my face. I looked in the chipped mirror hanging over my sink. For the first time in my 18 years of life, I didn't look like an orphan. struggling to survive. I looked like someone who belonged in a palace. When the sedan dropped me off outside the Grand Plaza Hotel, the entrance was blinding. Flashbulbs went off as local news reporters and high society photographers captured the city's elite stepping onto the red carpet. I hesitated at the edge of the carpet, suddenly feeling the weight of the fake persona I was wearing. Eleanor. I turned. Vincent was walking down the stone steps toward me. He wore a tailored midnight black tuxedo that fit his broad shoulders perfectly, his dark hair styled neatly away from his face for once. Without his messy uniform and chaotic swagger, he looked dangerously sophisticated, a young prince of the city's underworld. His eyes locked onto me, and for the first time since I had met him, Vincent went completely motionless. He stopped 2 steps away from me, his eyes sweeping down the length of the navy dress, taking in every detail. He swallowed hard, his throat moving nervously. "Fuck," he muttered softly under his breath. "Is something wrong?" I asked, suddenly self-conscious. "Is the slit too high? Is the color bad?" Vincent stepped forward, holding out his hand. His fingers were slightly warm, his grip firm as he took my gloved hand and tucked it securely into the crook of his elbow. "You look." He cleared his throat, looking away, a faint flush creeping up the back of his neck. "You look fine. You'll do." High praise coming from a guy who looks like a villain in a mafia movie, I retorted, regaining my composure. Vincent let out a quiet chuckle, leaning down to whisper against my ear, his warm breath sending a strange, unfamiliar shiver down my spine. "Let's go show these rich bastards who actually owns this town," he murmured. "Stay close to me, Eleanor. Tonight, we play for keeps." The ballroom of the Grand Plaza Hotel was a dizzying display of wealth. Crystal chandeliers hung from 30-foot ceilings, casting golden light over champagne towers, ice sculptures, and hundreds of people dressed in silk and diamonds. The moment Vincent walked in with me on his arm, a wave of whispers rippled through the crowd. "Is that the youngest Vance boy? Who is that girl with him? Is she from the Sterling family?" "No, I heard she's the valedictorian at his school." "A nobody. From the West District." "A nobody. She looks like royalty." Vincent held his head high, walking through the crowd like a king inspecting his domain. He guided me past groups of wealthy businessmen, introducing me casually as his girlfriend, smirking every time someone looked shocked by my background. "She's first in our class," Vincent told a prominent board member of a major tech firm. "Crushes everyone. A total genius." He sounded so ridiculously proud, like a kid showing off a golden trophy he had won at a fair. I stood beside him, maintaining a polite, elegant smile, playing the role of his brilliant, untouchable queen. Then I saw Carter. He was standing near the center of the room alongside his parents, a distinguished, stern-looking couple. Beside Carter stood the girl from the window, the one who had brought him the freshly baked cookies weeks ago. She wore a pastel pink designer dress, clinging nervously to Carter's arm. Carter looked across the ballroom and froze. His eyes swept over my navy gown, my styled hair, the diamonds at my ears, and finally landed on Vincent's hand resting comfortably at the small of my back. A look of sheer, agonizing pain crossed Carter's face before he forced himself to look away, satisfied. I whispered to Vincent, leaning closer to his shoulder. He saw us. "You win." Vincent looked at Carter, then down at me. Strangely, the usual smug, triumphant grin wasn't on his face. He stared at me with an unreadable expression. "Do you want a drink?" he asked softly. "Just water," I said. "All this fake smiling is making my face cramp." "Wait here. I'll get it." Vincent walked toward the bar. I stepped toward the glass balcony doors to catch a breath of fresh air away from the suffocating perfume and loud laughter. "Eleanor." I turned. Carter was standing behind me, having slipped away from his parents and his date. "Carter," I said neutrally, "you should be with your girlfriend." "She's not my girlfriend," Carter said quickly, taking a step toward me. "She's the daughter of my father's business partner. Our parents want us to date. I don't care about her." "That's none of my business," I replied. "Eleanor, please listen to me," Carter pleaded, his voice laced with a rare, desperate urgency. "You don't belong here. You don't belong with him. Vincent isn't who you think he is." I raised an eyebrow. "And who is he?" "He's a ruined heir," Carter hissed, lowering his voice. "His father's company is bleeding money because of bad investments. Vincent picks fights and acts out because his family is falling apart. He brought you here tonight just to insult my parents, to prove that his girlfriend can outshine their chosen match for me." I paused, absorbing the information. "A ruined heir? Bad investments? He's using you as a weapon, Eleanor," Carter continued, reaching out as if to touch my arm, then hesitating. "He doesn't love you. He's just bitter because my family bought out his father's shipping shares last year." Suddenly, pieces of the puzzle began snapping together in my mind. The intense rivalry, the obsession with beating Carter, the sudden, desperate need to parade a valedictorian around as his own. It wasn't just about high school pettiness. It was about a deeper, darker family feud. Are you finished? I asked quietly. Carter blinked. What? Are you finished telling me things I already figured out weeks ago? I looked him dead in the eye. Do you think I'm stupid, Carter? Do you think I didn't know there was a feud between your families? Then why are you staying with him? Because when Vincent needed a weapon, he didn't try to destroy me, I said, my voice echoing softly against the glass doors. He hired me. He paid me enough money to survive the winter. He bought me a coat so I wouldn't freeze. He gave me a dress that makes me feel like a human being instead of a ghost. I stepped closer to Carter, staring up into his polished, golden face. Your family took his family's shares, Carter. But Vincent gave me my dignity. So if he wants to use me to slap your family in the face tonight, I am going to let him. And I am going to do it brilliantly. Carter stared at me, his face turning pale. Eleanor. Go back to your pink princess salutatorian, I said coldly. Your drinks are getting cold. I turned back to the ballroom, leaving Carter standing alone in the shadows of the balcony. As I walked back toward the main floor, I ran into one of Vincent's lackeys, a tall guy named Marcus who usually hung around the school gates. He looked unusually sober tonight in a rented suit, holding 2 glasses of punch. Hey, Eleanor, Marcus said, looking around nervously. Did you see the boss? He went to the bar, I said. What's wrong? Marcus scratched the back of his neck, leaning in. Listen, I know you guys have this whole fake dating thing going on. Vincent told us all about the contract. I froze. He told you? Yeah, Marcus chuckled awkwardly. He told us he was paying you to crush Carter. But, look, Eleanor, I've known Vincent since middle school. The guy doesn't give a damn about grades. He didn't care when Carter beat him in freshman year. He didn't care when Carter's dad took the shipping firm. My brow furrowed. Then why did he hire me? Marcus looked at me like I was the densest genius on the planet. Because 3 months ago, before any of this started, Vincent saw you standing outside the convenience store in the middle of a rainstorm, crying because you didn't have enough money to buy a $4 umbrella, Marcus said softly. He wanted to give you money, but he knew if he just gave it to you, you'd throw it in his face. You're too proud. My heart stopped beating for a full 3 seconds. The air in my lungs felt like ice. So he came up with this insane, elaborate plan, Marcus continued, shaking his head. He told us he was gonna hire the valedictorian to flex on Carter. Made up the whole rivalry excuse just so he could funnel tens of thousands of dollars into your bank account without hurting your pride. Marcus looked toward the bar, where Vincent was currently standing, arguing aggressively with a bartender about getting fresh lemons for my water. The guy is crazy about you, Eleanor, Marcus murmured. He has been for a really long time. The noise of the ballroom faded into a dull, distant hum. I stood near the marble pillar, staring across the crowded room at Vincent. He was still standing at the bar, his tie slightly askew again, glaring at the bartender until the man hastily handed him a glass of ice water with a neat slice of lemon on the rim. He wasn't an arrogant idiot who refused to read between the lines. He wasn't just a rich boy throwing money around to satisfy a petty grudge. He was a boy who had watched me drown in silence, recognized my fierce, stubborn pride, and built a multi-$1,000 theater production just to hand me a lifeline. You can't tutor raw talent. Badass. Is 50 grand enough for a coat? Every absurd interaction, every demand for pain and suffering compensation, every snack stuffed under my desk, it wasn't a joke. It was a cover story. I felt a sudden, sharp ache in the center of my chest. It was an unfamiliar sensation, far more terrifying than poverty, far more chaotic than an unsolved calculus equation. Here, Vincent's rough voice snapped me out of my trance. He held out the glass of water. The guy tried to give me tap water. I made him open a fresh bottle of mineral water. Drink up. I looked at the glass. Then I looked up into his dark, fierce eyes. Vincent, I said softly. He frowned, leaning down. What? Did someone say something to you? Did Carter come over here again? I swear to God. Why did you hire me? I asked, cutting him off. Vincent froze. A flicker of panic crossed his eyes before he quickly masked it with his usual cocky smirk. I told you to crush Carter. You're the valedictorian. You make me look good. Carter's family bought out your father's firm last year, I said, keeping my voice level. You didn't care about the grades. You never cared about the salutatorian title. Vincent's smile slowly vanished. His hand tightened around his own drink until the glass hummed under the pressure. Who told you that? He growled, his jaw setting hard. Was it Carter? That manipulative little. It doesn't matter who told me, I said, taking a step closer to him. Is it true? Vincent went completely quiet. The glittering ballroom swirled around us, filled with laughing socialites and clinking glasses, but in our little corner the air was dead still. So what if it's true? Vincent muttered, looking away, refusing to meet my eyes. His voice dropped into a low, defensive raspy tone. My dad lost the firm. We're broke compared to these people. I wanted to take something from Carter that his money couldn't buy. I wanted the best thing in that stupid school. Standing beside me, he looked back at me, his eyes dark, vulnerable, and fiercely defiant. And you were the best thing, Eleanor. You were the only real thing in that whole fake-ass building. So yeah, I used my remaining trust fund to buy your time. Are you gonna sue me for breach of contract? I stared at him. You're an idiot, I whispered. Hey. You're a complete, absolute, catastrophic idiot, I repeated, feeling a sudden, warm tear slip down my cheek before I could catch it. Vincent panicked instantly. His glass nearly slipped from his hand as he said it on a nearby table and reached out, his gloved fingers hovering frantically near my face. Wait, fuck. Why are you crying? He stammered, his tough guy facade completely shattering into sheer terror. Did I hurt your feelings? Look, I'm sorry. You don't have to give the money back. Keep the 50 grand. Keep the dress. Just don't cry, Eleanor. Jesus Christ, people are looking at me like I stabbed you. I wiped the tear away with the back of my hand, letting out a wet, breathless laugh. I'm not crying because I'm sad, you moron, I said, grabbing his lapels and pulling him down until he was forced to look straight into my eyes. I'm crying because I realized I'm going to have to manage your terrible financial decisions for the rest of my life. Vincent blinked, his brain visibly short-circuited. What? He breathed. The contract is void, I declared, my voice firm, clear, and ringing with absolute certainty. Vincent's face drained of color. Eleanor, no. The fake girlfriend contract is cancelled, I interrupted, staring up at him. From now on, if you want me by your side, you're going to have to do it for free. No bonuses. No pain and suffering compensation. Just you and me. Vincent stood frozen in the middle of the Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Are you saying? He stammered, looking like a man who had just won a lottery he hadn't even bought a ticket for. I'm saying you're my boyfriend now, Vincent, I said flatly, adjusting his crooked tie. A real one. Which means I get to critique your tacky taste in jackets without feeling guilty about taking your money. Vincent let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Without warning, he grabbed my waist, lifted me completely off my feet, and spun me around in the middle of the floor, uncaring of the shocked gasps from the high society crowd surrounding us. Fuck Carter, Vincent shouted at the top of his lungs, setting me down and cupping my face with both hands, his thumb gently wiping away the dampness under my eyes. Fuck the grades. I won. Keep your voice down, I scolded him, though I couldn't stop the wide, helpless smile breaking across my face. People are staring. Let them stare. Vincent laughed, kissing my forehead with ferocious, messy affection. They're just jealous broke people. Across the room, I caught sight of Carter standing beside his parents. He was watching us, his face pale, his hands clenched at his sides. But for the first time in 3 years, I didn't care about Carter. I didn't care about rank or scores or the 5-point gap. I looked at the bad boy holding me like I was his entire world, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely, undeniably rich. The final semester of high school flew by in a blur of intense studying, chaotic dates, and constant school gossip. Now that our relationship was real, Vincent stopped hovering outside my classroom window every 2 hours. Instead, he sat in the back row of my AP classes, having threatened the guidance counselor until she transferred him in, spending half the period sleeping, and the other half staring at the back of my head. Whenever Carter tried to speak to me about calculus, Vincent would loudly clear his throat and start humming the Imperial March from Star Wars. It was childish, obnoxious, and utterly effective. When the final senior exams arrived, I didn't need a cash buff to win. I scored a near-perfect 1590 on the SATs and secured the top spot in the state. Carter placed second, 6 points behind me. On graduation day, the sun was shining bright and warm over the school stadium. Hundreds of parents, teachers, and students packed the bleachers, waving banners and snapping photos. I stood behind the backstage curtain, wearing my navy blue graduation gown and yellow valedictorian sash. Nervous. I turned. Vincent was leaning against a wooden pillar, wearing his own gown, completely unzipped over a black t-shirt, a familiar lollipop stick jutting from his mouth. I don't get nervous, I said, adjusting my cap. I'm the valedictorian. Badass. he grinned, stepping over and pulling me into his arms. He rested his chin on top of my head, his arms wrapping tightly around my waist. You're going to Yale. And you're coming with me to New Haven, I reminded him, poking his chest. Since your father bought that commercial real estate firm near campus. Yeah, well, Vincent muttered, a slight flush on his cheeks. Someone has to. Make sure you don't freeze during East Coast winters. Yale doesn't provide adequate heating, I checked. I chuckled, leaning my head against his chest, listening to the steady, strong beat of his heart. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the principal's voice boomed over the stadium. Loudspeakers. Please welcome our class valedictorian, Eleanor Brooks. The crowd erupted into thunderous applause. I stepped out from behind the curtain, walking up the wooden stairs to the central podium. The stadium was a sea of faces. In the front row, Carter sat, with his head bowed, quietly listening. Beside the stage, Vincent's crew was holding a massive, handwritten banner that read, Eleanor is the boss's queen. I shook my head, stepping up to the microphone. Thank you, principal, teachers, and fellow classmates. I began, my voice clear and calm, echoing across the field. I delivered the speech I had written, a sharp, practical, and honest reflection on surviving high school, hard work, and the reality of the world outside these gates. Many people in this school believe that success is defined by where you start, I said, looking out over the crowd. They believe that money, status, and background determine your place in line. But I learned this year that the most valuable things in life aren't given to you. They are earned. They are fought for. I turned my head slightly, looking down at the side of the stage where Vincent stood, his arms crossed, watching me with an expression of pure, unadulterated devotion. I'd like to thank my top investor, I said, a small, knowing smirk touching my lips. The guy who paid me $15,000 to crush my rivals bought me a giant green coat and taught me that love is an equation worth solving. The entire stadium went dead silent for 2 seconds. Then Vincent's lackeys let out a deafening cheer, blowing air horns and throwing confetti into the air. Vincent himself stood there, his jaw slightly open, before a massive, blinding grin broke across his face. He threw his head back and laughed, a loud, triumphant sound that carried over the entire field. That's my girl, he shouted at the top of his lungs, uncaring of the principal's horrified expression. That's my valedictorian. I smiled, bowed politely to the cheering crowd, and stepped off the stage. As soon as my feet hit the grass, Vincent lunged forward, scooping me up into his arms and swinging me around while the crowd went wild. You're crazy, he laughed, setting me down and cupping my face. You just confessed to the whole school during a valedictorian speech. It was in the contract, I lied smoothly, reaching up to wrap my arms around his neck. Public display of affection. Daily check-in. Vincent looked down at me, his dark eyes shining under the brilliant June sun. Contracts expired, Brooks, he whispered, leaning down until his lips were brushing mine. This one's for life. Works for me, I murmured. The ROI is incredible. And as he kissed me in front of the entire graduating class, amidst the flying caps and falling confetti, I knew I had made the best investment of my life. Epilogue, profit and loss. 4 years later. New Haven, Connecticut. The autumn wind blew red and golden leaves across the lawn outside the Yale Law Library. I walked down the stone steps wearing a crisp beige trench coat, carrying a leather briefcase packed with my final year thesis research. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Vincent, I'm outside. The coffee is getting cold, Caterpillar. I walked toward the campus gates. A sleek black sports car was parked at the curb, hazard lights blinking. Leaning against the driver's door was Vincent. He wore a dark wool coat over a fitted sweater, his hair styled casually, a wooden lollipop stick jutting from his lips. At 22 he had filled out into a broad-shouldered, dangerously handsome man, the managing director of his own commercial real estate firm, though he still looked every bit the rebel who had cornered me in an alley 4 years ago. When he saw me, he spat the stick into a nearby trash bin, opened the passenger door, and held out a warm insulated mug. Hazelnut latte. 2 shots of espresso. No sugar, he declared proudly. I took the mug, taking a slow sip. Temperature is optimal. Good job, boyfriend. Where's my daily bonus? He demanded, leaning down and tapping his cheek. I stood on my tiptoes and kissed his cheek, then his lips. Vincent immediately wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me tight against him, deepening the kiss until I was breathless. Hey, a voice called out from the sidewalk. We pulled apart. Carter was walking past, wearing a gray suit and holding a stack of legal files. He had graduated near the top of his class at Harvard Law and was currently interning at a major firm in the city. Carter stopped, looking at the two of us. His bandaged nose from high school was long-heeled, his expression mature, though a faint, nostalgic smile touched his lips. Brooks. Vance. Carter greeted us politely. Salutatorian. I nodded. Still trailing behind her, Carter? Vincent smirked, slinging an arm around my shoulders. She just published her third law review article. I heard you were second author on yours. Carter shook his head, a soft chuckle escaping him. Some things never change. Congratulations on the publication, Eleanor. Thanks, Carter. I said warmly. Good luck with your firm's merger. Carter gave a brief nod, shot Vincent a cool look, and walked down the street. Vincent scoffed, pulling open the car door for me. Guy still thinks he's the golden boy. Unbelievable. You're 22, Vincent. Stop picking fights with salutatorians, I said, climbing into the leather seat. Vincent got into the driver's seat, starting the engine. He reached across the console, grabbing my hand and weaving his fingers firmly through mine. I don't need to pick fights anymore, he said, turning his head to look at me, his dark eyes warm, clear, and filled with an absolute, unshakable devotion. I already won the only prize that matters. I looked at our joined hands, then looked out at the sunlit university streets ahead of us. I used to think my life was a math problem with no solution, a dark, endless cycle of counting pennies and surviving cold winters. Then a bad boy handed me a carton of milk, offered me a ridiculous contract, and paid me to beat the world. I took a sip of my coffee, leaned back against the headrest, and smiled. Drive, Vincent, I murmured. We have a date.